Most SaaS platforms have spent the last few years adding payments, but payments is now table stakes. So the real question is once payments is working and the money is flowing, where does the value actually come from for customers? That's what we're getting into today. If your SaaS platform already runs the workflow, the next question is, can it help the business? Welcome to Breakthrough SaaS Growth with the Jasons, the podcast where we cut through the noise and share strategies that actually drive customer-led growth. Each week, we bring you straight talking conversations on adoption, retention, expansion, all things AI, and everything in between. Let's get started. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Breakthrough SaaS Growth with the Jasons, with myself, Jason Noble, here in London, and my partner in crime, Mr. Whitehead, in the States. Say hello, Jason.
Hello, Jason.
Today, we're joined by Patrick O'Donnell as a guest. He's the Global Commercial Director for Payments and Embedded Finance at Phorest Salon Software. Pat spent 25 years in payments across Citi, MasterCard, and dLocal, and he's now on the other side, building payments and financial capabilities inside a very key vertical SaaS platform. And that shift is really important because the conversation today isn't about payment infrastructure. It's about what happens next when financial services become part of how customers run and grow their business. What do we do then? How do we really add value for the customers? Welcome, Pat. Great to talk to you again.
Hello, Jason. Jason, great to meet you both and excited to be here.
Pat, we're going to bounce a couple of questions around you because I know this is a key topic. We've got the event in London next week, and I'm really looking forward to meeting face to face. But when you look back at the last few years, when did payments become such a big focus for SaaS platforms?
Yeah, I think it's been happening for quite a while, right? And I think most SaaS platforms are catching up on that, and it's becoming a little bit of table stakes, just kind of a natural evolution. So once you solve, to your intro, once you solve for the underlying business process that your industry vertical requires, then it's kind of a natural evolution to start looking at the payments piece. And that's kind of how it happened for us. And I know from speaking to other kind of platform businesses, it's the same type of process. Some fall into it, some plan it a little bit more. But as well as that, I think there's an investor angle to this as well. So you've got a lot of private equity companies scouring the world looking for the next platform provider in whatever industry verticals they're focused on. And I think they start looking at then how can they bring their expertise and their value proposition to those verticals. And payments is a natural home for vertical SaaS platforms. So that's where they bring their value in.
That's a really interesting angle that I'd not thought about the PE side of it. With kind of the experience that you've got in the industry and with what you guys are doing, when does payments stop being a differentiator? I mean, if more organizations are now providing it, at what point does it become just something table stakes, as we've said?
I think there's an expectation from our customers that it's there.
Yep.
Now, there's multiple, I suppose, angles that you can come at from that, as in, whether you want to look at at a purely cost angle, or whether you want to look at it as a more integrated value add solution. So I think it's definitely a table stakes element, again, payments at this stage, particularly in our vertical. But it's how you treat that payment experience is critically important, and not just as here's payments and this is how you go and use it, but what difference does it make to you, my customer, in terms of using our payments capability? And the value of having that integrated is it's fully aligned with everything else that happens in your software lifecycle process for running your business. And that's key and critical. It's got to make sense. It's got to add value. It's got to take away pain for your clients and allow them to focus on what they need to focus on, is running their business and being able to get paid really easy for the really, really good services that they offer. And that's the key piece.
Do we
Yeah,
see?
payment is so.
God, sorry,
Uh,
Jason.
um, getting the money is so key for most businesses. I mean, ultimately, that's if you don't have the money coming in a reliable fashion, you don't have a business. But I imagine for most SaaS providers, moving into a new area, if they haven't done this before, they're bound to make some mistakes, or there'll be some things that come up that they hadn't thought about. So I'm curious from your perspective, what do you think most SaaS companies get wrong or misunderstand when they say, "Oh, we need to start getting involved in the money collection piece"? And what should they be thinking about? They'll say, "This will make it a great experience for my customer and actually make them stickier for me as my customer."
I think there's a couple of things, and I'm saying this as a broader context.
Sure.
Luckily for Forest, I wasn't in Forest when Forest started building out its payments capabilities, but I think number one, you got to have the right partner to enable that service for you as a SaaS provider. So that's critical, but it's a very different mindset to what your core business is.
Mhm.
So if you're in Forest case, you're providing software for salons, moving to enabling payments is outside of your ecosystem. It's a regulated industry, number one. Not saying that
Mhm.
you have to be regulated to enable it, but it's a regulated industry. So there is a huge amount of outside considerations to it, whether it's around the compliance of what you're offering, whether it's in relation to dispute management, the operation cycle, the customer support, all these type of things. Plus, it's an entirely different pricing model.
Mhm.
So understanding that pricing model, how you expect to earn margin off that solution, what your customers expect to pay for that,
Mhm.
um, and how you look at it as a growth vertical going forward is key. So all those elements are entirely like fundamental to getting it right. But I think the two are making sure you pick the right partner and also making sure that you think around about what it means operationally and from a customer support perspective for your customer base.
With your background, Pat, and in the previous companies you were with, when you've moved into kind of SaaS with Forest into vertical SaaS, what's changed in how you think about where payments fit in and what else they can provide? I'm
Yeah,
sure
look,
there's a lot.
yeah, this is very different for me. It's the first time I'm the other side of the fence, right? I'm used to being on the regulated side.
Fascinating transition, isn't it? I've done the same once or twice, but it's a fascinating shift.
Genuinely, I have to say, I won't say it's blown my mind. That's probably a slight stretch, but it's definitely opened my mind, to be honest with you, around what this means from a pure business perspective and running your business. And also it's a little bit liberating, I have to say. And I'm sorry to all my regulated colleagues that I've been working with for years, but it is a little bit liberating as well. So it allows you to think a little bit more around what it is you want to try and do and what value you want to try and add without necessarily having that regulated and compliance constraint, which you do, but not to the same extent. So I think that's been eye opening for me personally. I think in terms of the industry and from a vertical SaaS provider, I think it allows you to start looking around what is it you're trying to provide for your customer. So what does your customer need? It's not about just okay, we're adding payments, or it's not about okay, we're now going to enable buy now pay later as a you know an offering to help our customers grow their baskets. It's not about enabling a financing tool to help them grow their business. All right, it's like what are you providing for your customers and why do they need it?
Yeah.
And why would they trust you to provide it? So, like the first thing you got to get right is, and assuming you have, if you're getting to this space, is like what is the underlying platform providing for our customers? Why do they like using it? Why do they trust us? And then once you kind of have that, then you can start layering on either the payments piece and any of the, I suppose, other financial solutions on top of that as well. But it's got to fit seamlessly within the overall product that you offer your customers.
Yep.
I think that's key, and that point you made about value is absolutely critical because as you've said, you've got many SaaS companies. This is now standard. Payments is standard, and it's added to help improve the customer experience. But if we're being honest, a lot of vendors are also chasing margin on this. Where do you see that fine line between vendor monetization and customer value? Because it is a fine balance to tread, but where do you see that?
Yeah, I don't know how fine a balance it is to tread, to be honest with you,
Okay.
is my view on this one, is because if you're going to provide these services, in my view, so it's, I suppose, number one is it, are you in this for the long haul? If you're in this for the long haul, if you're providing a service in an industry that you love providing that service in, and to customers that you enjoy providing that service to, then you're thinking about what makes sense for them. And I'm probably going to sound a bit like a broken record on this one, so I do apologize in advance. But it's then, okay, does this add value to my customer? If it does, yay, that's great. So that's number one tick, right? Well, then how do I price this in a way that makes sense for that customer, but also makes sense for you as the provider, so you're earning margin? Because ultimately, you as the provider, the SaaS provider, has to be able to monetize that to be able to help grow your business, to then allow you to build all the other great functionality and features and product sets that you need to do for your customer base. So it's a I won't say a virtuous cycle, but it's kind of a virtuous cycle. So you gotta think about what problem you're solving, what value does it add, and then if you're hitting those two, then you can monetize it in a way that makes sense for you and for your customers. And it's a very easy discussion then with your customer base in terms of what you're trying to provide and what you're trying to solve for. And if you built up all that other trust, they then will trust you in terms of, okay, we see why you're providing this. We get the value it adds. We get that's why it bringing either an efficiency to our business, or a revenue growth opportunity to our business, and then you can build from there. So yeah, so it's a fine line to a degree, but if you're doing it for the right reasons, I think it allows you to grow in a way that's very sustainable.
I love the way you've said that because on other episodes we've done, and both Jason and I talk about this, but if you've got services, if those services add value for customers, logically they will buy them from you at the right price point. It's all about that value. And as you said, it's getting that equation work. I think kind of switching now from payments. I mean, once payments are working and they're delivering that value, what's that next real customer problem that embedded finance can solve? And it can be a lot, so it might not just be one.
Yeah, so the way we look at it, and again, this is probably not rocket science, but so the first thing is making sure that our customers can get paid reliably. So they're getting their money in, they're able to manage and reconcile that in a very simple way using our platform. Um, and then you look at, okay, what else do you want to give to customers that makes sense for them, right? So it's better money management,
Mhm.
and it's also better ability to move that money around. So once you start, I suppose, looking at it from that viewpoint as well, it's kind of straightforward. And for example, Phorest has recently launched a capital offering via Stripe, so a lending offering via Stripe in US. And it's there. But number one, we do this. It's not out of the bat. We go and talk to our customers. We see what makes sense. What do you need? And providing that liquidity for our customer base in a way that's easy to use, easily understood, was a very simple decision, and made a lot of sense for our customers and made a lot of sense for us, right? Because it allows them to get quick and easy access to finance in a way that's controlled and managed, and allows them to then make growth decisions around their business. If they have liquidity hump they need to get over for whatever reason, that's there as well. So again, you're giving them the tool that allows them to manage their business in a way that makes sense for them, not as a, well, we'll offer this solution because we think it's a great solution, and we might make extra margin on the back of it. It's a valuable solution. Similarly to other um, payment tools, I mentioned buy now pay later as well, right? It's a very valuable tool. we thought long and hard on even within Phorest around whether it would make sense for us to offer this to our customers. Was it a need? Did it make sense for their underlying customers to have it? And following many discussions internally and externally, we said, okay, this makes sense. So again, something we launched because it'll help grow their business, and ultimately is something that our customers, clients, were also looking for as well. But then we're also looking at many other things that will take away pain and provide efficiency from our customers. So whether that's looking in the future at adding payroll or other things like that will help them, and again allow them to concentrate on what their core is, which is running their salon or running their clinic. That's key and critical to everything we think about.
I'm curious as well too. Running a small or medium-sized business, it's hard. You have to wear a lot of hats, and there's, from what I've seen of small business owners, whether you own a restaurant or a salon or whatever it's going to be, not everyone is an expert in finance or doing financial analytics or stuff. So, you've got both the transactional piece of payments and how do we get the money in and make sure that more is coming in than is going out and all that good stuff. But then there's also the other part of how do we analyze what's profitable, where do we want to do specials, where do we want to do these other things. So I'm curious, when you're talking with your customers, or what should a business owner or a SaaS company be talking about with their customers about how they can not just manage the payment process, that tactical piece, but what are the other business analytics that you can enable or business decisions you can enable that they otherwise just wouldn't have the time to do? Like, sure, they may have QuickBooks for their finance system, but they don't have that granular data, or they're not going to go out there. So I'm just curious how it changes the relationship with the customer and how you talk about it differently as part of like a sales or a renewal discussion.
Yeah, and again, this is back to the what are you doing with your customer and why you're doing it, right? So you end up, SaaS platforms end up sitting on a huge amount of data. So how can you then utilize that data in a way that makes sense for those customers? Whether it's it's not necessarily even related to the finance piece, but so a lot of what we're thinking about is, okay, how do we use the data that we have in our system related to your business, our client, or even as an industry vertical in general, to show them, okay, even products they have, what's the margin they're earning on those products, for example, right? And what opportunities they have to I suppose right size or monetize further what they have for their customers, but also looking at benchmarks across the industry as well, giving that level of information. And if you extend that further into the financial side of it, I mean, some of what we're thinking about as well is, well, we sit on a huge amount of their payment financial data. So again, it's looking at that data to provide reports and insights, etc., that they can easily understand and digest, number one, and simply not because necessarily they're not financially aware, or it's more that they have time to actually look at this stuff in a way that's easy for them and digestible for them, because they're trying to run their business. And they're spending 14, 15, 16 hours a day running that business. So you want to be able to give them information that's really easily digestible and really easily usable as well. So we're spending a lot of time thinking about that.
On the data piece, Pat, I mean, that's I think today the importance and accuracy of data is so critical to everything we do. But two or even three questions for you here. I mean, that data, does that give SaaS providers like Platform a distinct advantage over perhaps traditional financial institutions that have done payment? Question one, where do you guys see the biggest opportunity today with the customers you're dealing with around embedded finance? And then the third bigger question, I guess, is where does AI fit into all this? How's Phorest looking at AI? Because that is, when you're dealing with immense amounts of data, accuracy is important, but you've also got to look at what efficiencies can we use and how do we bring that added value. So three quite different questions there for you, but all focused around that data.
Yeah, can't have a conversation without AI on it these days. That's fair. So the first one, what advantage does SaaS have over well, look, number one, you're in the vertical, right? So you know it inside out. And actually, kind of flipping back to one of your questions earlier on, Jason, around the difference between, I suppose, being in this space versus on the other side of the regulatory divide is in like Phorest, for example, or whichever vertical SaaS, you typically provide a solution for one industry. You might have nuances within that industry, so you've got to know it inside out by default. You have to, right, to be able to service your customers properly, which means you've got a lot of data and insights within that industry. You know what they need, so that gives you a natural advantage in terms of what you provide to that customer base, because you know them so intimately over others. And even if we take it back to providing payment solutions, you're typically not going to be the cheapest option in the marketplace for providing payment solutions. But what you're providing is a much more integrated experience for your customer, and that's the critical piece. Yes, you want to give them something that's providing really sound financial value to them, but it's never going to be the cheapest. So you got to be really good at what you do. You got to be really good in terms of what you offer, and you got to earn that trust, so that you don't get into a nickeling and diming discussion with the clients. They see you as a key critical cog and value add in running their business.
Trusted partner, like you said.
100%. So, which kind of covers number 2 slightly as well, I suppose, effectively. But the AI question, look, everybody's talking about AI and figuring what they do, but it's as even internally within Phorest, we're also thinking about internally how we use it for efficiencies, etc. as well. So there's 2 parts to that, but it's in terms of the AI capabilities and offerings that we are looking to build out for our customers. Again, it's about what makes a difference for their business. And we've just launched, actually, as of yesterday, as part of our May collections, our initial AI offering within the marketplace, which is, providing our customers and their stylists, their employees, simple access to all the data we have in their system in relation to the customers that they have. So when they bring someone in, they can click a button and it will give them what we call a cheat sheet, but an entire view of that customer, their history, what they've done before, etc., which is massively valuable. We're also looking at enabling it within our what we call front desks, so managing bookings, managing reappointments, all these type of things. But that's the first step. We're growing. We're looking at multiple other iterations of that. But again, it's what difference will it make to our customers in their day-to-day lives in running their business? And to be very open with you, when you're talking to I suppose small SMBs, like they're not spending their time thinking and looking and working and what their plan is around AI. They're again running their business, so it's got to be entirely relevant for them. And as we roll these things out, it's a test and learn, right? They're giving them these tools which we think are going to be really useful for running their business, but then they've got to work with them, test them, make sure that they're comfortable, that they're willing to allow AI to interact with their customers, for example. And that's a big jump and a big, kind of shift in mindset. So, but it's really interesting, and I think there's a lot of value we can add, and we will add in this space using those tools. But there's a lot to go and a lot to grow there.
I think it's an exciting area because it is. I mean, everyone's seeing AI everywhere in the news. There was a local, it's actually a beauty salon that I was speaking to recently. They've had someone put through their front door a leaflet about doing an AI audit. Now, go back only a few years and just the concept of that, it would seem so alien, but they've given them a fixed price for doing it. But it starts looking at things like bookings and all these things. And I think some organizations haven't thought about what AI can do for them. So there's huge value out there.
Yeah.
And I think it's really exciting. I mean, back to your earlier point, this is no longer just about we're processing payments. It's about understanding your business, the financial health of your business. And it puts us as providers in a far more trusted position. And I think there's a lot more responsibility for that. You talked about we've got to make sure we're giving value to the customers. They won't buy it, they won't expand, they won't grow with us if we don't add value. And it's so it's so fundamental to how we work as technologists.
100%, 100%. And I'll be open and honest. I would never describe myself as a technologist. It's like Luddite might be more appropriate, but yeah, but it's true. And that's the value of the vertical SaaS space,
Yeah.
right? You just know your space intimately. You know your customers intimately. You're able to give them things at the right time that they need. You're even to, like AI as an example, you're able to interpret the market. You're able to interpret what's going out in the world and give them advice and education, etc., as to how to use these things and why these things are of value, etc. So I think that's a really critical element to what we provide as well.
Right. Yeah, I'd love to shift and get your thoughts a little bit. So, if you're speaking to our audience, which are other SaaS vendors trying to grow their SaaS business, one of the strategic decisions they have to make is where do we invest in functionality that we want to build for our customers? And I know most product managers, they have a huge backlog of requests that have come in and bug fixes and other things. And there's an opportunity cost of doing something or not doing something. How would you recommend that a SaaS provider decide this is when we should invest in building out the payments piece because we believe it'll make us have a differentiator, will make our customers sticky or whatever it's going to be versus we should invest somewhere else? Because, you also mentioned you need to have a certain amount of expertise and it's a regulated industry and all these pieces. So I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's not easy to really do payments and finance functionality well and easy out of the chute. And then you may want to start with other things first and then add it in at a certain point. But what are your thoughts that other SaaS providers should be thinking about?
I think as a SaaS vendor, your underlying platform is your core. So you need to get that right. You need to build up your customer base. And then you need to see, I suppose, from your customer base, what it is they're doing, how they're doing it from a payments perspective. And then I suppose you're jumping in from there. I would say as well is from a regional perspective, if you are multi-regional, it probably makes sense to start from with one location first to kind of build that out and make sure you're comfortable there. I also think you need to do your research and figure out what partner you want to work with. There is a multitude of partners out there. So I think it's got to be one, you got to think about it long term. So you got to think about, is this a partner that you want to work with strategically that is a natural fit and has an aligned roadmap in terms of what your underlying core platform is going to provide versus do I want to do something quick and dirty? My view on it would be make sure you pick someone that is going to strategically make sense for you in the longer term. So whether that's via a gateway or otherwise, I think you definitely need to think of it from that perspective. And having talked to a number of other platforms as well, it's people being burnt doing that. So I think it's a really critical point to think about, because once you get that done and you strategically align, you know your customers want this, then it's a no-brainer stuff. And then once you get that done, you can figure out all the other great and wonderful stuff, because you want that payment piece to integrate with the client experience, and that is critical. If it's not integrated and if it's siloed, then it's then you're not really adding the value that you need to.
Yep, that's awesome. Well, Pat, thank you so much. Before we go, we always like to throw out a breakthrough challenge question to our guests. And so yours is, if embedded finance is done properly, how should it change the way customers think about the future of their business?
If embedded finance is done properly, they shouldn't even think about it. Genuinely, it should be invisible. It should be just, I know my provider. I know Phorest is there for me running my business. I need to do X. I know I can use Phorest to enable that. And so they shouldn't even they shouldn't have to think about it. Like, we try to make, my view in terms of what payments is and the finance platform is, it's entirely just an enabler for what our customers need to do and what we need to provide for our customers. So my job is to make me invisible as that enablement point for our customer base. Genuinely, that's what we need to do, because they're not thinking about, okay, I need to make a payment, or they're not thinking about, okay, let's use Phorest for payroll or for as a a buy now pay later provider. It's like, okay, I need to run my business. What's the best way to run my business? Okay, Phorest has got the tools to do that. That's what it needs to be. It needs to be essentially invisible.
I think brilliant, because that's what technology really should be. Embedded technology should be transparent. Business should just work with it. It's not something separate. Such a
100%.
key Pat, this has been such a great conversation, massively eye-opening for me. I think there's a whole different area for our listeners to explore. I'm super excited about the FTT Embedded Finance event next week and looking forward to saying hello to you face to face. A big thank you for joining us. Before we do go, please let our listeners know a bit more about how they can contact you, and a bit more about Phorest.
Yeah, if any of our customers or prospective customers are out there, please reach out to Phorest and our sales teams. We'd be delighted to speak to you. And likewise, in terms of the event next week, Jason, looking forward to meeting you face to face. It should be a great event.
Fantastic. And we'll put your website in the show notes below. So anyone who's interested, just check out the description.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Really
Pat.
appreciate you coming on, Pat.
Appreciate it, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.
We're proud to be partnering with FTT Embedded Finance and Super Apps, taking place alongside Customer Alpha and FTT Payments on 12th of May in London. The event brings together the biggest names across the embedded finance and payments industry, including financial institutions, brands, retailers, SaaS providers, marketplaces, platforms, and the big tech innovators that are shaping the future of the ecosystem. It's a huge chance to discover how cross-industry partners are collaborating and innovating to deliver exceptional outcomes for end users, leveraging the latest technologies while reimagining business models in the process.
Thanks for listening to Breakthrough SaaS Growth with the Jasons. If you enjoyed the episode, follow our show, and please share it with someone else in SaaS. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or at breakthroughsaasgrowth.com. And if you know a brilliant guest or a sponsor who'd be a strong fit for the audience, send them our way. Until next time, keep closing the gap between what gets sold and what customers actually achieve.